All right. Um, we are now recording. I just got back from watching The Backrooms, and with some good friends, of course. And before the movie even started, like what I was hearing about it was that it was just not good. That it was just gonna be trash. That people were just like. But the thing is, and this was kind of what's it called? Let me turn this down. This was this was hello, yeah. This was kind of a foreshadowing. Oh, what's another word for foreshadowing? I don't know, I forget. But this was kind of a foreshadowing of how people were going to take the movie. But when I first heard reviews about it from a friend who watched it before me, he was like, I liked it, but the people who I was watching it with did not like it. And it's because they just didn't understand it like I did. And I get that because, well, no. Anyway, where I was saying, okay, well, and then that lowered my expectations. I was like, okay, so this movie's, the thing was, I wanted the movie to be so good. Like, I wanted it to be good enough for me to, like, actually rewatch it. And I think it was actually close to that, and it could have been that if it wasn't actually a horror movie. I would say the movie would have been a lot better if it wasn't actually horror, more like thriller with hints of horror. I don't know. I like the world building in it. I thought that was really good. The acting was pretty good. The first half of the movie was good, but then the second half just kind of goes. I don't even know. It just goes somewhere. Somewhere where I obviously didn't watch enough Instagram reels to know that part of the lore, but I don't know. I thought it was good. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked it a lot. I like what they did, and I think they actually did a good job with what they were given. But I had a few ideas during the movie, and there was a couple things. The first thing, there was actually there were two ads that stuck out to me that was just propaganda straight into my brain. The first one was, it was like about this girl who, I think the movie was called Onslaught, yeah. And it was like this girl was just, it was about, the trailer was like this girl who was like battling, I don't know, these sleeper cell agents or like these like Call of Duty looking guys, who were just like just like going crazy or like mercenaries or whatever. And the whole thing was, it was just propaganda of like, yes, like I'm going to be I can have everything I want. I can still be, a mother with kids, but then I'm just going to leave my kids and like I don't even know, not even the provider, just like leave them and do my own thing, do what I want to do. Which it's like, sure, you can do that, but the thing is, let's not have a kid and then decide to do that. I don't know, it was just like propaganda of female irresponsibility and just like, oh my gosh, of just female breadwinners and just like women. Oh, this was the biggest psyop for girls, and I am on girls' side the most when it comes to this. The most evil thing corporations have ever done to girls is try to get them out of being mothers and then put them in an Amazon factory where they are managed by an AI manager and have to work all day. Which one would you rather do? Would you rather spend all of your time at home taking care of your house, your family? It's hard because it's like, honestly, if I could be a girl and do all that, I would. Not in a transgender way, in a way where it's like, in a man way. So for instance, so for a girl you have to think where it's like, okay, a girl's business is the household, the children, the influence on the children, the diet of the children, really just the entire future generation. The business, it's like, for example, my mother, my dad works, but then my mom keeps the books, right? It's like, it goes so much deeper where like the mother really is the manager of the household, right? I mean, the father is the provider. He leads the household, but it's like the mother's the manager. I mean, that's the best way to put it, where he just like, she manages what is going on. She manages the family. But then the dad is leading the family and providing for the family. But they're both providing in their own way. It's I guess in a sense it's complementarianism. But it just goes so much deeper than that. But then you have this like, you just have this goy slop movie of like, oh my gosh, like fuck that, let's abandon tradition and what we know to work and what literally makes you happy. You ask these people of mothers and wives and families and even business CEOs where it's like, oh, do you wish you had more time working in like your business and making it better? And they're just like, what the hell? No, they wish they had more time with their friends and family. And then it's like you just have like these thoughts being beamed in by fucking Tel Aviv, and it's just like goes inside your brain. You're just like, and people just listen to this goy slop and they're just like, oh my gosh, like I don't want a family. I just want to work a 9 to 5 all day. And like, that's what I'm doing. And like, it sucks. I mean, really, no matter what you do, it's just like white collar or blue collar, really any collar sucks, right? I mean, unless you're living out your dream and you're not, or like you are where you want to be in life, which is rare for a lot of people, especially my age. Then it's just like, then you're, hopefully you're on that path, but you're kind of cooked right now. And that's just kind of how it is. But it's like, to have this move, it pisses you off to have this propaganda be beamed straight into your face and like act like people are just gonna fall for it, of just like, yep, no family, just work. Or if I have a family, I'm gonna abandon them and go to the military because I need to prove that I'm strong by doing something. It's like, you have to work with your talents, right? And biologically, girls are not talentedly strong. And I mean that in the sense where it's like, the strongest girl will never be stronger than the strongest man, in that sense, where it's like a man just has biologically more talent in that area. And it's like, you can really work hard. You can work hard and do whatever you want. I mean, I believe that. But it's also, I had a friend tell me this, where it's like, you follow your passions, but then when you follow your passions, you realize what you're good at, right? And when you realize what you're good at, you start doing the things that you are good at, and then you'll fall in love with what you're good at. And then what you are actually good at, your talents become passions, and that's when your talents become passions, that's when you really get something special. I believe that was in a book that Steve Jobs wrote. And it's just like, that's where the magic happens, right? But it's like, it's when you listen to this like corporate media that says everyone should be working for us and be a slave in our factory. It's literally just like slavery being beamed into your mind. And then it's like propaganda. It's probably the most infuriating, rage-baiting thing, retarded thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I hate it so much. I hate it. The second thing of propaganda was like, I'm trying to remember. It was that, and then I don't even know. I don't even know, but it was just straight propaganda. I mean, it's just like these movies that like I will not be watching because it's just like and you have to wonder, it's like, are these movies actually propaganda, or are the people directing the movie live inside such a massive bubble thinking that this is actually what people want? It's like I don't know what's true anymore, because it's like I can see how you could actually be a very successful person, and it's like the older you get, the more of a bubble you're placed in. The more successful you are, the more of a bubble you're placed in, it's hard because it's like when you're at the very bottom or like somewhere completely different, and you're listening to these successful people say music or watching these successful people's movies, and you're talking about this with your friends. Like, for example, like say in the past, like you'd be talking about a movie that you loved with all your friends in the cafeteria at lunchtime. And it's like you're saying, and then you're talking with more people, but it's in the consensus is that the people below, see, at this level, at the bottom level, consuming what you're making, are giving feedback, saying what they should change, and the opinion's popular, but then you get to a level where it's like level 2 is like you're grown up, you might have the same opinion or whatever. It's just different levels, and then you finally get all the way, you raise in level to the person making it, and then like you wish it's like, well, why don't they listen to like the ideas that the people have, and if they just listened, it'd be so good. But the reason is because the gap is so far. The gap is so far between the creator and the consumer, and it's a lot farther than people realize. And it's hard too, because it's like, I mean, I truly, and you see a lot of people, there's two things. The first thing is that it usually goes really, really well when the creator does actually listen to consumer. I know this is true in a lot of video games where it's like game directors or like people doing updates or whatever, when they actually listen to the community and then follow through and like actually make the changes that the community wants, the game explodes. It goes so much better because it's genuine feedback, right? It's feedback mixed with positive ideas about not just people who are hating, but people who actually care about the game and care about your work and your creation to make it better, right? And that's just, and it's I think what's best in a company, or what's best in any creative space, is that when you try to get the furthest down you can to the people listening or watching or playing whatever you're creating. That's really where, when you get these two opposite ends, right? And then when you get these two opposite ends, right, and then you mash them together, and like you take both sides, it's like that's really where the magic happens, right? And with that, it's just like, yeah. And you want that, right? But it's like, it's so hard. And so it's like, that goes back to my point where it's just like these people in Hollywood creating these, what I think, I mean, I'll say it's like, bro, this looks like retarded propaganda goy slop that's just being beamed in my brain. But then, like, I don't know if that's actually what it is, It could actually be like that. But then the other thing it could be is just like, you'll talk to the average person in Hollywood or living in California, and they'll just like genuinely have like what they think to be revolutionary ideas of just independent women not being in a family, a nuclear family, because that's what they think is best for all of society. And then it like essentially just like extremist liberalism, and that's the bubble, right? It's just like, it's insane, and it's just like always in the super wealthy, the people who are in the biggest bubbles, who really have no idea what's even going on inside or outside of their bubble, in reality. It's just absolutely bonkers. And so, like, I think that's propaganda, but, like, who actually knows, bro? Who actually knows? I mean, you could think, what's interesting, it's like, I mean, who's actually the ones being controlled? You know, is it the ultra elite being controlled? Like, the ultra elite, is the ultra elite being controlled more than the sub level, more than the consumers? Because it really seems like nowadays that the consumers are awake. That, like, you know, we seem very. I mean, you'll talk to the average American, or Generation Z American, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of the anti-Semitism. I've heard of the capitalistic nature of our slavery. I've heard of the propaganda. I've heard of both sides of liberalism, extremist conservatism. I've heard of really it all. And the reason why they've heard it all is because it's just all from scrolling. It's just all straight from scrolling. And so it's just like they're pretty up to date on things. But then you just now you wonder where it's like, okay, it seems like almost through TikTok, social media, and scrolling, it seems like, well, there's two things. First of all, is that's probably where the biggest propaganda comes from. But then it's like you have to sift through all of it to find the truth. And it's kind of, I don't know, maybe this is me just being ultra controlled, but it's like after scrolling so much and like deciphering for yourself, you know, especially in my generation where growing up with the internet, we've always been good at telling what's been a lie and what's been truth, you know, at least for the internet, you know, like even back in the days, like, you know, most people on the internet my age nowadays can tell, like, oh yeah, that's obviously a scam. Like, don't click on that message. That's obviously a scam. This isn't actual truthful information. Like, or like maybe this is, but then it's just like, but we actually have to do some digging here. It's like we have very good critical thinking skills because lies have always been around us. And so, you know, now that we've almost been connected by scrolling, it's funny, literally by doom scrolling, because everyone doom scrolls, everyone watches Instagram Reels, and then everyone's trying to create social media and content. And so it's just like the consumers trying to rise, but then they're creating for other consumers, right? And so it's almost like we now have like a pretty good foundation of kind of what's going on in the world, because, you know, and this is my point where it's like, well, half of it could honestly be just like propaganda, but then the other half is actual people who want to find the truth, my age. But I mean, we're just getting so much better at detecting the truth from lies. I mean, you have people like Nick Fuentes, which, I mean, whatever you think about him, you hear his opinion on, for example, JD Vance, and then it's like you have this guy who Nick Fuentes did essentially like a whole background check on JD Vance and has the receipts of just like where he came from. I mean, no matter what you think on Nick Fuentes, I mean, it's weird because it's like, okay, he pointed out the plot holes in this in the vice president of this guy who really did kind of come out of nowhere, and it's like he's older. You can see what generation he's from, and just like how things don't add up, and his ties with like Peter Thiel and things like that. And so it's just like, okay, yeah, this guy probably is a plant, you know. And it's getting easier to see that because the people not born in our generation are, I don't know, honestly, low-key just like worse at using the internet. And there's been a couple instances of that where it's like there were like the people who even cleaned up the Epstein files, or not Epstein files, but when Epstein killed himself, right, for the first time, for when Epstein killed himself and they went in, which, I mean, whatever you think about it. I think it was staged where like they killed him or whatever. But when they went in and edited the footage out, they left like they used Adobe, what's it called? Like Adobe software video editing for it, and they left the receipts in there of the exact times they edited it. And it's like, okay, if we were actually high level, we would delete that, and we would know how to delete that. And so it's like, there's just like receipts of just like, of the generations before us trying to use the internet and trying to use technology, like high level technology, but it really just kind of has outgrown them. And even my generation now, where technology has grown so much, where it's like we used to be like the forefront. We like any person my age would know exactly what they're doing when it comes to computer, but now it's kind of where I would say we're kind of falling behind with AI, because that's just rapidly rapidly advancing, at a horrifying rate. But it's like, but even still, it's like growing up with the internet without, and no other generation previous did before us. It's like we definitely have our skill sets of using it, right? And so I would say that's one of our greatest strengths is like being able to decipher what's truth and what's a lie. It's like even a person, like I used to have friends that would believe in flat earth, right? But then like you would talk to them about it and you'd be like, bro, do you actually believe in flat earth? Like on a one-on-one conversation, and they'd be like, they would when it comes to like a whole group of people, they would simply be like, oh yeah, dude, flat earth is totally real, like why do y'all not get it, blah blah blah. But then you exclude every single other person, you have a one-on-one sit down conversation with them, and you're like, okay, do you actually believe in flat earth? And then you see their critical thinking skills and that they're not an actual retard piece of shit, where they're just like, no, actually, I don't believe in flat earth, but there is evidence that seems actually really interesting that I think you should check out. And then you check it out and you're just like, oh, wow, that is actually pretty interesting. But, I mean, yeah, the evidence just points towards earth being definitely not flat. But it's interesting because it's like, I don't know, I guess it depends on what type of person you are, but like, for example, the earth being flat, any person, you're kind of trained to do this, but it's like any person would just be like, oh yeah, the earth is definitely not flat. But then it's like, okay, it's good because it's like, well, okay, why is it not flat? But then you're just like, the arguments are actually pretty simple for why the earth is round, but I mean, there are arguments for the earth being flat, and there's a lot more than you would think. And some of them actually are interesting, but yeah, the earth just isn't flat. But all that to say, to the point where it's like, people can have outrageous opinions, and people can say that they believe in these crazy things, but then you actually talk to them about it, and it's like, no, they actually don't really believe that. They just are very skeptical. They're just skeptical people who are trying to get attention, by saying that they believe in crazy things, cause really in reality they don't even believe it. They just like, it's almost like a way to talk to people about these fascinating ideas, and like by getting other people interested in what you're interested in, right? Where it's like you find this idea so interesting that you challenge other people to almost bait them into conversating with you about this idea. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe that's my bubble, that I feel like that's kind of the bubble that I grew up in, at least with conversation. But some people just aren't in that bubble. Like, for example, like after walking out of the Backrooms movie, I can't be too judgmental, because it's like, me personally, I pretty much knew the lore. I knew the lore. I watched the reels beforehand. I had a pretty good grasp on the movie and the idea of the movie. And honestly, during the movie, it's like, I saw some people like hold their hands behind their face, because like they were scared of like jump scares coming up, but like it was weird. It's like I would usually do that because like I'm scared of the suspense, but I actually didn't do that this movie because it's like I knew so much about the backrooms from just like scrolling and just like different other like sources, so much to the point where it's like I felt like it's like, you know, the scariest thing is the unknown, and nothing in the movie felt unknown. Everything felt known, and so I wasn't really scared. And that's why after watching the movie I was like, yeah, I don't know, in my opinion, I wish they took more of a thriller approach on it and like had like, you know, disturbing aesthetics and like kept up with like dreamcore type rather than just like, because that's what they had the first half of the movie, where it's like it was dreamcore aesthetic with like weird instances, and then there were some scary parts, but like they were mixed in well with like video footage. But then the second half of the movie kind of went a little off the rails with like, it got a little too horror with like, not really jump scares, but just like, I don't know, just like different ideas that no one had really seen before. And it just like wasn't, it kind of felt like the second half of the movie didn't fit with the first half of the movie. I don't know. But yeah. But back to my point where after watching the movie, I had a pretty good grasp on the movie, but then I was walking out and I was like waiting on my friends to use the restroom, and I heard this guy walking, like it was just like a catch a moment eavesdrop, right, where he walked past me and he said a statement that allowed me to understand that he did not understand the movie. And it was so funny in the moment because, in my opinion, I felt like the movie so clearly explained the idea of, for example, it was about the last scene in the movie where it was, because I think the creator, director / or whatever knew that this movie was going to be confusing to people who had no idea what the backrooms even were. And so he kind of laid like simple foundations and like lore out like baby food. But it's just interesting because even as laid out like baby food, some people just still didn't understand. And it's just like, I don't know. And that's where I go back to the bubble thing, where it's like, you know, that person's probably just in a different bubble. And yeah. I don't know. It was weird. I don't know. But one thing that it did actually give me hope on is like, this kind of goes back to the point where I was talking about where our entire consumer generation, or really like all of Gen Z, is extremely connected with social media. And this was the first time that we've seen an idea from social media. You know, like the Backroom started as like a fan theory fiction of like a interesting idea that probably started on like Reddit somewhere, right? But then it's like you see this idea and you kind of, well, it's weird. It's like you see what happened. Like the whole idea of a backroom started from one picture that was posted on like probably like 4chan or Reddit, right? And then it's just like stair steps of like, posted this picture on Reddit, now it's trending on Reddit, and it's like now, you know, it's like now it's trending on this website and this website, and it's now there's getting, you know, reels like of just like, oh, interesting like ideas or explaining the backrooms, and then now you get like fan stories of people making stories like about people in the backrooms, and then lore, and then it's like slowly it turns into like from this one picture that was taken all those years ago, you just have this entire culmination of like this entire world building. And I find that so cool. But it's like it kind of gives you an insight of where I feel like Generation Z creativity is going. You know, this was kind of the first project, but it's like you think of so many other things where whether it was like, I don't know, there's silly things where it's like, okay, there's like brain rot, but then there's also like, I don't know, Backrooms is such a great example. I'm trying to think of just different stories or whatever, just like different ideas that were just essentially just like popularized on social media. But I don't know. All that to say, it's like this movie kind of gave me hope, and also was a foreshadowing. I'm using that word a lot, but I'm trying to think of different words for it. But anyway, was a hint, I guess you could say, as the creative direction that our generation is going to go in. I don't know. I guess this video is just like really about Generation Z, but it really is, because it's like this was, you know, a movie that really only came into existence because of Instagram Reels, because of TikTok. You know, if TikTok didn't exist, then this movie never would have existed, right? And then, like, my point is, it's like, you would think where it's like, oh my gosh, you know, creativity's done for, you know, it's like no one's actually really creating and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, like, you see about whatever, you know, it's like, you kind of think before all this that creativity's kind of doomed. But then I watch this movie and I see, you know, there's good and there's bad, but I found it really cool, and it really fleshed out the idea. I think it did a good job at fleshing out the idea and adding and sprinkling in some like a little bit of new stuff. But it's just like, all that to say, it like gave us a hint at like, no, like really, I would say our generation is so special because growing up with the internet, it's like you see Dreamcore, right? And it's like all of Dreamcore is about, I mean, you go to like Dreamcore photos, right? And it's just like suburban houses, you know, saturated colors, you know, disturbing like black squares in like a bright sky, like, and you don't know where it leads, but it's just like things that obviously previous other generations would never have understood. But it's like, I don't know. All that, I don't know. It's just really interesting to see how us growing up with the internet, where our creative direction is going. Because I see so much, I mean, like, as growing up with the internet and like we're so influenced by the internet, it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy where it's all going and the ideas that's coming from it. It's insane. But I find it really cool. Sorry. But I find it really cool, and it honestly makes me really excited for the future creativity that is going to come out soon. Because, like, this is what the movie, like, really, like, got me excited for. It's the fact that this is a director, I believe he was, like, 19. He was 19 or some other age, or I don't know, some age. I don't know. He was, all that to say, he was one of the youngest directors to work on a, what is it, A1 film, or a A-class film, or like a very popularized standard film. And it's like, this is what we got. And like, okay, keep in mind, this is the guy's first movie, and I thought it was pretty good, and I really liked the direction. But it's like, it kind of gives you a hint at like, you know, I mean, you always want to think about where it's like, for example, I'll use this example. One of my friends created a music beat, right? And he said, you know, this is probably the best beat that I'm ever going to make. He said, this is probably the best beat that I have. And he was really passionate about it. And it's good to be passionate about those things. And it's good to be like that. But at the same time, in my mind, I was like, you realize that you've made something really good. And I see your talent. And it's like, this is going to be, like, you were going to make so many better beats, you know, from here on out. you're going to make so much better stuff. And it's like, like it's like you have to, he's only seeing in like a one-dimensional, where it's like you have to see 3D, where it's like, I made this right now and this is really good. And it's like, I have to think, it's like, and you don't know what you're going to make until you make it. But it's like, if I'm saying, where it's like you can see one creative project and it kind of points where the rest of the creative projects are going to go. Or just gives you an idea, or just like, it just gives you hope that this isn't going to be the best, It's not going to be the best. Because it's so early, and right now, it's like for movies, for art, for culture, for music, kinda. We're already pretty early to that, but for music, for all these different creative genres that, our whole society is essentially just based off consuming entertainment. So that's just like where we're at. But like, so whatever, I guess embrace it. But for the entertainment industry and art industry and creative industry going forward, this was kind of a hint and the first little bite that we got of the creative direction that Generation Z is going. And I really like the idea of that, and I thought it was really interesting. And it's like, coming out of the movie, it like gave me a cool feeling of like, now, it was kind of immersive, where it's like, now coming out of the movie, one of my friends was like, well, that really just didn't change my perspective on anything. And I kind of agreed with them in the moment, but like now I'm like, it kind of changes your perspective on like how you view life, not in an idea sense, but in a literal ocular sense, where it's like you look at stuff and you're like, I don't know, things just look a little bit faker after watching the movie, which, it's a cool touch. It's just a cool touch, but I don't know. That's really all I had to say. But I like the movie, and I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, I don't know. I gotta go to bed. Bye.